Hey everybody, welcome to the 20-Minute Bible Study. I'm Vince Miller. Today we're discussing the topic of romanticizing marriage. You know, it's a tremendous letdown for married couples when they discover that one or both of their emotional, physical, or relational expectations are not being met. Often marriages that are struggling discover this for the very first time in a counseling session, and it can be a sobering moment. I've encountered several men over my lifetime who claim that their wife at some point or another has exclaimed, "You're not the man I thought I've married." And I have also encountered men who have said or privately thought the same about their spouse. This is an awkward, challenging, and reflective moment. And I think it's often brought on because we have over-romanticized our idea of marriage without understanding the mutual struggles and challenges of marriage itself. So here are 3 realities about marriage that debunk the over-romantic ideas that we have about it. 1, marriages will encounter struggle. They will. If you talk with couples who have been married for 50 years or longer, you will discover that they will often admit to multiple years of conflict with each other. In fact, they will tell you that there was often a prolonged length of time, sometimes 5 to 10 years, that was immensely challenging for them. While they will tell you that they're currently very happily married, they will also reveal a very severe and substantial season when they weren't quite sure they were going to make it. Often an event or conflict that could have easily ended their marriage. I think many are surprised by this because we have over-romantic views of marriage, especially often in our early years. 2, marriage is a commitment, not a contract. You know, as we enter marriage, we usually don't realize that our commitment to marriage is far more important than the contract of marriage itself. Contracts in and of themselves are made to be broken. And because we are deceptive people, we're always looking for a way out of a contract. And the remedy for this is commitment. And there is nothing romantic in our minds about this till we've actually lived through real commitment. If you talk to those who are further down the road of life and marriage than you are, you will discover that they will resoundingly say that the one thing that got them through the hardest moments in their marriage was this one word, commitment. Commitment by both during the non-romantic seasons, and it's not about a contract. 3, married couples need to share what they need. You know, when we hold romantic views of what we want from our spouse, and these wants or needs go unfulfilled, we by nature begin to look elsewhere when our unspoken needs are not being met. Maybe it starts by looking at other couples and seeing their relationship through the eyes of perfection. And then our romanticization escalates into seeking out the physical or emotional tension that we want or need from another person who is, well, not our spouse, till finally we're emotionally or physically involved with another person. And why? Well, maybe because we never verbalized our wants or our needs. Right or wrong, we have held these feelings in, thus they escalate into tragic results. And for the sake of your marriage and your future, your children and your faith, have conversations about what you want and need. Speak up and let your heart be known, and in the end, break the silence. It might lead to something incredible. So guys, when we come back, we will be joined by a very good friend of mine, Vince Vaughan, who will help us to dig into this topic a little bit more on a personal level.
Get your day started right. Sign up for the Men's Daily Devotional at mensdevo.org. That's mensdevo.org. They're short, sweet, and to the point. Read them and share them with the men you know. And get into God's Word daily.
Well, guys, good to be back. Glad you have joined us again. I am joined today by Vince Vaughan. Thanks for being with us, bud.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So, you know, you heard a little bit of the monologue. Obviously, we're talking about what it looks like to romanticize marriage. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think men romanticize marriage, don't you think?
Yeah, probably, I'm sure without realizing it, but yeah for sure.
We kind of have this idea in our mind on what we think marriage is like or what we're going to get out of it. without
Right.
really embracing the reality of what it's going to look like. And clearly, I think we can learn from couples who have gone a long ways ahead of us, right? We can learn lessons from them. We can hear from them. Of course, as I think about your life and your marriage, you've been married how long?
25 years.
25. And how many children do you have?
2.
2.
Yeah.
And how's it been? How have the 25 years been for you?
Overall, I'd say really good. I would say it's true what we're talking about, though. There's things that just couldn't have really planned for,
Yeah.
So good, but just still surprises along the way.
Yeah, I know. And I even though you've had those surprises along the way, I'm sure that you've had aspirations in your marriage, right? Like what are today, 25 years in, what are your aspirations for your future?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting time because, our kids are getting older. We have a son in college, daughter's a junior in high school. So she's looking in that direction towards college, being out of the home, that sort of thing. So I think it's really just thinking about that next stage. What's it going to look like as empty nesters, and your kids are so much a part of your lives. So, it's like, what's it going to look like now for us together?
Like it was in the beginning almost, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's very strange in a good way, but for it to be a Friday night and just to go, what do we want to do? And we can actually go do it. It's such a weird feeling. We haven't had that for many, many years, so.
I think that sometimes we fail to see the beauty in all the stages and the phases of our marriage, right? And sometimes they happen upon us, right? But for sure, because of that, I think that's proof that in our minds we actually romanticize, or maybe are too fixated in the present, right? On the current circumstances. And I think that's especially true as we have kids and they can tend to consume our lives or whatnot. So what do you think your wife's aspirations are for your marriage today? Similar or different?
That's a good question. I would say similar. I mean, we've started talking about it, but probably need more to really, because there's times where I think I know what she wants, but I'm assuming. Yeah. It was what I realized later, like, oh, that's what you actually wanted, right? So, so I think similar, but just need to be fleshed out, or we need to flesh them out together, because like you said, every stage, I mean, it's new, it's uncharted territory for us. So like, what is this in reality really going to look like?
Yeah. Okay, so I love the way you're talking about it. And here's why I love the way you're talking about it. It's very honest, first off, but it's also true to life, right? I think when we get into marriage, we have a certain romantic idea about it, but when we start to live in it, we lose track with kind of the compass and the purpose. We even may not really know what our wife is thinking, what our spouse is thinking. She may not even really know what we're thinking, which is what you're kind of confessing to guys today, even 25 years in, right?
Yeah.
We wake up one day and we kind of go, I don't know if I know really what she wants, or maybe I don't know if she knows what I want, which draws out some of these points about the romantic view that we have about marriage, or the assumptions we draw about their aspirations, even in the middle of marriage. So we bump into this, and we probably need to have conversations about it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this a little bit. In the monologue, I discussed at least a few items related to learnings about marriage. And here's a little bit of what I said. I said that couples will, at some point in a marriage, encounter a struggle. And one way we romanticize that is thinking that we'll never struggle.
Yeah.
Right? Another way that romanticized marriage is thinking about it in terms of just a contract rather than the hard commitment that we make. And another way that I think that we do it and romanticize about it is viewing other marriages as better or more ideal than ours rather than really sharing our own needs. Right. Of those three things, which of those three things stands out for you the most?
Oh, man. I mean, they're all really relevant or ring true to my experience. I I'll say that last one, though, is really interesting. That whole comparing, because, again, it just happens. You don't even realize it's happening, and it's so easy. I suppose today, especially with social media and all of that, it's just so easy to look at somebody else's and go, man, they are just killing it. What is wrong with us, And it's almost a relief when you talk to somebody and they're like, no, dude, we're not actually killing it. I mean, it's good, but here's...
We're killing each other.
Yeah, right. But here's the reality behind the scenes, and you're almost like, oh, gosh, it's almost a relief, because even if things are going good, for everybody, there's just reality. And I might even kind of pinpoint one area, especially early in our marriage, and that was around, physical intimacy. And, nobody talks about that, really. And so you really are thinking, I guess it's fine for everybody else, but man, we're kind of wrestling with this. And we finally talked to some close friends, that were honest enough to share a little bit. And it was just like, I think I can breathe again. And then as the years have gone by, conversations here or there, realizing dude, everybody struggles with that area. Almost everybody to some degree. Right. So it's okay, we're normal. That was the relief, I think.
Are you talking about the desire for physical intimacy and the...
Yeah, the desire, and then just the communication around it, a lot of practical things around it, frequency, just to be honest, and those kinds of things. But in general, just there's challenges to kind of figure out, to work through.
Yeah, and I think that those conversations are important to have, because we have an idea of what other people are doing or how other people live that out, but we never really communicate, even with other couples, about it, right? Which is, it should be a safe topic.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to have it in inappropriate context or just with another woman, for example. Right. But the fact that even you and I are discussing it, two guys talking about it, not disclosing details about a relationship necessarily, but saying, how do you deal with it? What kind of frequency? How are you communicating about it? How do you talk about it? What increases physical intimacy there? We're almost ashamed to talk about those things, right? But we have these ideals in our mind, right? Like everybody else is doing it 5 times a day, and we do it 5 times a month, right? Why is our frequency less than everybody else's? And while some people are weirded out by the fact that I even mentioned that, it's important to talk about these things. Yeah. Because if we don't know.
Right. And exactly. And especially with men, I mean, I think this is it's the perfect need and opportunity with trusted friends, male friends, to be able to go, God, can we just talk about this? So, yeah,
exactly. I think that every guy probably has some issue in one of these three. What I really wrestle with in these three is really understanding that, every marriage is going to encounter a moment of struggle. I was really a bizarre learning for me to learn probably about 10 years ago, that if you talk to couples who are 50 years married and older, right, you will discover that there was a period of time in their marriage where they thought they weren't going to make it. I mean, seriously, thought they weren't going to make it. And that it was only commitment to each other and God that got them through. Otherwise, they would have easily left. Right. That was an incredible learning to me that taught me that, look, marriage ain't a cakewalk either, right? Yeah. I may have multiple years where I don't like the person that I'm married to, seriously. Yeah. And that I have to choose to be committed over the love that I think that I imagine in my own mind that I want or feel I deserve. Right. That changed my view on marriage forever. But that's true of most couples that have been married 50 years or more that will tell you that. Like some will say even a decade of difficulty. That's crazy, isn't it? But for me, that's an incredible learning, and it kind of deconstructs in my mind this romantic idea of marriage that we sometimes have. Yeah. Okay, I got a word here, obviously, from Mark 10. I want to read it for you because I think it's really important. And last time we discussed the first part of the text, so I'm going to read both verses. It's Mark 10, verses 8 through 9. It says, "And the two shall become one flesh, so they are no longer two but one. What therefore," and this is what I want to focus on, "what therefore God has joined together, let no man separate." When you hear that, when you hear those words, what do those words infer for you when you hear those words, Vince?
Yeah, well, I just think, man, it just, I guess the word that comes to my mind is deeper. It's like having a deeper understanding of this marriage commitment than probably the typical view of our culture. You know, when it talks about God has brought these together, it's like, man, that's pretty profound, you know? And so I think it does speak to what you were just describing, just saying, man, we're making the commitment, you know. And I've heard somebody say, when you have that safety of both people knowing, man, we're just in it regardless, then it just creates sort of this safe zone, you know, to wrestle through stuff like that, you know. And again, I think just knowing that that's normal. It's normal for most marriages to go through those seasons that are really hard to go, oh, again, we're not strange. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just normal. So
I love that perspective, and here's why. Especially where you started off with, that God brought us together.
Right.
Which I think that, don't you think, that when we have these romantic ideas about marriage, there are ideas about marriage. Yeah. And often in our marriage, we believe that we got ourselves into this thing, so therefore we can get ourselves out of it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you approach it with this view from Mark 10, what God has joined together, and you start right there, God joined us together.
Right.
Right? There's a spiritual interaction now in this marriage, and it's not you that got yourself into it. It's God.
Right.
And that God has a purpose for you in this issue, problem, deficiency, brokenness, sin, whatever it is, and he's going to get you through it.
Right.
On the other side, that's a very different, it's a mindset issue, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of this romanticizing marriage is seeing a marriage through the view of the world. And I think that's why marriages end in divorce, to be quite honest with you, is because we have a worldly view on a relationship in a contract that can easily be broken by either one of us. And we don't see the commitment that God has in this marriage. Yep. Any additional thoughts on that whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, just that thought that God is committed to us, you know, and to the marriage, and brings a lot of resources to the table. I think it's very easy, especially in marriage, to think, okay, what am I going to do, or are we going to do to figure this out, and not say, oh, wait, you know, we have God that can bring all kinds of creative resources to the table, you know, and really make a difference.
So, like, as we start to close down our time, what do you think is something that you can do differently in your marriage today?
Yeah, I think probably, well, for starters, just having that conversation. We talked about it early, you know, on here about this kind of next season of our life. You know, what are those hopes and dreams, and kind of making sure I really get that. I really, for real, know what she's thinking, and not just what I think she's thinking, you know, and really have a good heart-to-heart about, you know, hey, let's, as much as we can, look at this next, you know, 5 years of our life and what that might, I think that'd be a great step.
You know, I was actually thinking and being a little bit convicted as you were sharing earlier about the fact that it may be good to go back to my wife, who I've been married to for 22 years now, and say, I want you to know I'm committed to you. You know, and, you know, maybe you call it a renewal of the vows, but I'm committed to you because of God's commitment in our marriage. You know, and there's something powerful about that, isn't it? It's to raise the bar a little bit in our relationship, and draw attention to the fact that really it isn't about either one of us getting what we necessarily want or need. It's about God's role in our relationship together, and him being honored through that, and me drawing attention to that. Like, look, our relationship is a reflection of God to the world. You know, we started our marriage with this idea that we were going to be a light to the world, you know, and I remember that moment. I remember that vow, and maybe it's coming back to those vows and being committed to that again and again, and reassuring my wife, like, look, this isn't about us getting what we want. This is about God accomplishing what he wants through us, just like he says in Mark 10. right? So anyway, maybe that's fodder for the guys listening today, and maybe they'll take some action on that. So thanks for being with us today, Vince.
Yeah, you bet.
So guys, hopefully today you've taken something out of our time. Maybe this time has convicted you about something in your own marriage that you need to take action on. If not, I would encourage you to go back to Mark 10, verses 8 and 9 again, and try to figure out how God has put together the oneness in your relationship and how he's preparing you for that oneness. Seek to be less of your own identity and see God's purposes through you. And with that, guys, I want to say thank you for being with us, and we'll see you right back here next time.